Okay, so you're welcome to another episode of the Hot Take right here on GH Movie Freak TV. My name is Tony Asankomah, and yeah, you already know when you see the hot take, it means Tony has some crazy opinion to share on some subject. And today I'm reacting to a clip that I got sent by that got sent to me or that I was alerted of by the newest addition to the team, NOB, Nana Obrimpon Berima, who is the producer for this show. He alerted me of this clip. Shout outs to him. He's been very supportive in all the stuff that we've been working on at ghmoviefreak.com and also on GH Movie Freak TV. So big shout outs to you, my guy. He alerted me of this clip and I watched it and I was like, this is definitely something I need to give my hot take on. But before I do that, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you have hit the notification bell so that any updates that or any uploads that we put on this channel, you be the first to get it. And make sure you share this video as well. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Let's just get right into it.
So this is stuff that I've heard, and this is coming from studio execs, studio CEOs of some of the biggest on the Hollywood side, as well as the crossover to the UK industry. Now there is an intrigue because Nigerians are Nigerians. I believe we are the jewel of Africa, and we are very charismatic and loud in a good way. So people know.
So a little bit backstory before I go any further in this video. This is a video from let's say a discussion that happened at the just ended AFRIF, which is one of the biggest film festivals that happens in Nigeria. And this is John Boyega, who is a Hollywood star, obviously a big name, but he's of Nigerian descent and he's also based in the UK, right? And when you think of Nigerian born or Hollywood stars of Nigerian descent, he's definitely one of the names that comes up. And he was at AFRIF and he was talking about something that I believe is very relatable to not just or something that's not only peculiar to the Nigerian film space, but something that is also very, relatable to the Ghanaian film space. Yeah.
Of us, when it comes to storytelling, the quality, editing style, the dialogue in which the way it's written, the understanding of stories, people seem to think that on the bigger scale, they can't collaborate with you guys because you're genuinely making stories for yourselves. Yeah. Yeah. And because you're making stories for yourselves, I guess everyone's patting themselves on the shoulder and saying, you were great and I was great. And it removes the hard conversations that usually happen in Hollywood. And they're very hard conversations that creators have to go to. And so a lot of studio execs that I've worked with or developed projects with have an interest to come into Nigeria and film, but somewhere along the way that interest just dwindles because of either somebody else they've spoken to that's had an experience and all of a sudden they go, nah, we're not gonna shoot there. We'd rather go to South Africa, paint the sand red, to look like it and then shoot there. I mean, the same thing happened in Woman King. There was big aspirations to shoot as much of the film on the continent as possible, but specifically to shoot some key scenes here in Nigeria. And I was excited to hear about that because that would be my second time working in Nigeria. And as the process went along, it started to get a little bit quiet. I'm looking at my schedule, I'm like, okay, we're in South Africa, we're just in South Africa. And for me, there's an authenticity here, even with the air, the environment, that should be captured. But unfortunately, because of people's perspective and assumptions, whether it be crew quality, actors too, there's things being said about your egos, the way it worked, that it would probably be hard to work with you guys because of the sense of success and pride, which you should have, by the way. But in the spirit of collaboration, people don't really believe that it's possible. And some people take risks. Thank God for our production team on Half the Yellow Sun, who, and by the way, it's because we had Nigerians involved that were at the forefront of funding that we were able to be here for the whole entire thing. But on a scale that I see for all of you guys, is simply not happening because of these stereotypes also that are being put out there about the quality of filmmaking And even, you know, with the Netflix deals, like round of applause for the next Netflix deals that's been able to expand the storytelling.
Once again, shout outs to Nana Obrempon Berima, my producer, for alerting me about this video. And I'm sure we're gonna like listen to the video again, or watch the video again and pay attention to, like, critical attention to some of the things that he said. But first of all, I can say that he was being very, should I say, diplomatic in what he was trying to communicate. You could tell that he was literally like struggling to, or not struggling per se, but he was trying to use the right words. He was being careful so that he doesn't say anything that might sound or seem out of place. And I can understand why. And that is the reason why I find this video very relatable to the Ghanaian film industry as well. And most of the things that he said, although he was speaking directly to the Nigerian filmmakers, you could tell that he's speaking to a large extent about the entire African continent, about why Hollywood doesn't want to collaborate with African filmmakers. He strategically or specifically was speaking to Nigerian filmmakers, but I can understand and I can see the relationship or how this relates to Ghanaian filmmakers as well. In case you missed it, let's just take it bit by bit and I'll break it down or I react to it.
This is stuff that I've heard, and this is coming from studio execs, studio CEOs of some of the biggest on the Hollywood side, as well.
Like I said, he's being very like diplomatic in his response. I don't know the question that he was asked, but you can tell he's being very diplomatic.
As the crossover to the UK industry. Now there is an intrigue because Nigerians are Nigerians. I believe we are the people of Africa, and we are very charismatic and loud in a good way. So people know of us. But when it comes to storytelling, the quality, editing style, the dialogue, the way it's written.
This is a part I want us to pay like close attention to.
The understanding of stories. People seem to think that on the bigger scale, they can't collaborate with you guys because you're genuinely making stories for yourselves. Yeah. Yeah. And because you're making stories for yourselves, I guess everyone's patting themselves on the shoulder.
You see, and it's the same thing with Ghana, I believe. We are making stories that I believe are not, to a large extent, relatable with the rest of the world. We are telling good stories, or we have some good stories that are being told, but I still feel like those stories seem not to be relatable to the rest of the world. And not that it matters in the terms of like us that trying our best not to dilute our storytelling or dilute our stories, but there needs to be some form or some way to make this story relatable to the rest of the world that would in effect make it appealing for international collaborators. Because if they are going to, of course, if we are going to collaborate with Hollywood, it would be not necessarily about the story. It would be more about what they can bring in terms of investment in making it possible to tell those stories. But it has to be a story that is to some degree relatable to them. Otherwise, what's the point in them investing in our stories? You see where he's going with this argument? Because, I mean, yes, we have exciting stories. We have stories that the rest of the world wants to know. But if it's not relatable to the rest of the world, who's going to put money into it? And that's where we often end up at the short end of the stick, where we have these or some of these production companies coming into Africa and taking African stories and whitewashing them. Okay, that's why. Because they would want to find a way to make that very African story relatable to a white audience, and most often than not, they end up whitewashing those stories, and it essentially loses what makes it African. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's what he's trying to communicate. We have the stories, but we are telling the stories to ourselves, and we are making these stories so so that they are not relatable to Hollywood or to the rest of the world to make it attractive enough for them to want to invest in making those stories. I think us Ghanaians also need to pay attention to that.
Saying you were great and I was great, and it removes the hard conversations that usually happen in Hollywood.
And that's another point that also relates to us. Because we are making these stories for ourselves, we are often like you said, patting each other on the back and not necessarily having all the hard conversations. From what I said as a critic, anytime I try to have all these hard conversations, they're like, who are you again? Like, why are you speaking this way about our films? Somebody called me out the other time and said I was I was scoring, or I was measuring a Ghanaian film by Hollywood standards when film is film. But that's an old conversation. But essentially what he's saying, or what he's trying to communicate, is that because we are making the stories for ourselves, we are not necessarily willing to step out of that, that what we have come to perceive to be African filmmaking or African storytelling, and try to conform or adapt, or in many ways, adapt is the right word, adapt to what should be or what should be seen as a global standard that would force us to do better, right?
Very hard conversations that creators have to go to. And so a lot of studio execs that I've worked with or developed projects with have an interest to come into Nigeria and film. But
They have an interest to come to Ghana as well. Interestingly, a lot of, in the last couple of years, there's been quite a number of foreign production companies that have come to shoot in Ghana. And they all of them not necessarily have told like Ghanaian stories. They found a way to maybe tell a story that had some African scenes in it, and they would find a way to come shoot it in Ghana. But we've not seen a collaboration where it's so much so a Ghanaian story that it's being told from an international filmmaker's perspective. Well, there's been a couple. I can think of Cookie Box that I feel is a very Ghanaian story. To a certain extent, but it's also a story from the filmmaker's home country. But anyway, I digress.
Along the way, that interest just dwindles because of either somebody else they've spoken to that's had an experience, and all of a sudden they go, nah, we're not going to shoot there. We'd rather go to South Africa, paint the sand red.
And the thing about South Africa is, I think they are, let's not kid ourselves. You might see, you might all agree that Nollywood is a very thriving film space, but I think out of Africa, South Africa has the most, for a lack of a better word, the most suitable, I think that's the right word, the most suitable ecosystem for filmmaking in Africa. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but I feel like South Africa has the most suitable ecosystem for film making in Africa, because they have the studios, they have the equipment, they have the expertise, they have the production companies that are willing to collaborate. I've seen international productions that have come to Ghana and have brought in South African crew, or they have brought in line producers, or collaborate some form of additional support in terms of assistant cameramen or drone pilots from South Africa to come and work in Ghana. I've seen that. So I feel like, South Africa has the most conducive ecosystem for filmmaking in Africa.
Look like it and then shoot there. I mean, the same thing happened in Woman King. There was big aspirations to shoot as much of the film on the continent as possible, but specifically to shoot some key scenes here in Nigeria. And I was excited to hear about that, because that would be my second time working in Nigeria. And as the process went along, it started to get a little bit quiet. I'm looking at my schedule, I'm like, okay, we're in South Africa, we're just in South Africa. And for me, there's an authenticity here, even with the air, the environment, that should be captured. But unfortunately, because of people's perspective and assumptions, whether it be crew quality, actors too, there's things being said about your egos and the way it worked that it would.
I think the ego thing is also a Ghanaian thing because, bro, we've seen it. We've seen Ghanaian producers, directors, actors not willing to accept change, not willing to be called out or corrected or even advised. You've seen that, and it's all the ego he's talking about. That's it.
Really hard to work with you guys because of the sense of success and pride, which you should have, by the way.
That's
but
true.
In the spirit of collaboration, people don't really believe that it's possible. And some people take risks. Thank God for our production team of Yellow Sun, who, and by the way, it's because we had Nigerians involved that were at the forefront of funding.
That's another thing we need to pay attention to. You see, there are a lot of I'm planning on making a list of on that, where there are a lot of Ghanaian or Hollywood stars of Ghanaian descent, either first generation or second generation Ghanaians in Hollywood, that don't necessarily even wave the Ghanaian flag or don't necessarily like puff their chest and say, "Oh, I'm Ghanaian." But that's not the issue. What he's trying to point out is that a film like Half a Yellow Sun was funded by Nigerians or people who are proud Nigerians. And so it made sense for that film to be shot in Nigeria. I think Ghanaians should also take a cue from that. And this is particularly me sort of calling out to the Ghanaians out there who are like executives in or have some pull outside there to also be willing to try to pull in some funding, try to get some attention on Ghana. I can't blame them, but I still want to call out to them to do this because we need that, right? We need some of this. Sometimes you only need someone to help you open the door and help you through, right? And I feel like we lack that in our space. And top of my head, well, let me not go to that side.
That we were able to be here for the whole entire thing. But on a scale that I see for all of you guys, is simply not happening because of these stereotypes also that are being put out there about the quality of filmmaking. And even, with the Netflix deals, round of applause for the next Netflix deals that's been able to expand.
I'm still waiting.
The storytelling.
I'm still waiting for the first Ghanaian Netflix original. I'm waiting for it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping someone gets that soon, and I'm hoping it's something good, right? I'm looking for a Netflix original from Ghana. I'm looking forward to it. Well, I think it can happen in the next year, maybe two, because I know some Ghanaian creatives that are putting in the work, and hopefully they fall on that radar, or hopefully they get the attention of some other Ghanaian or some other Hollywood star of Ghanaian descent who will be willing to, pull us along. But yeah, the import of what he's saying, that I think it is very relatable to us Ghanaians, is we must find ways to adapt. We must find ways to make it attractive for Hollywood to want to come and shoot or collaborate with us. Not necessarily shoot here, but collaborate with us. There are two different things. Hollywood producers could come to Ghana and shoot a film that essentially becomes a Hollywood film, and it's not necessarily a Ghanaian production, or it's not necessarily a Ghanaian co-production. And that's what we should be looking forward to. It's two different things. It's different if what's it called? BBC comes into Ghana and comes to shoot what's it called? Treadstone, or Black Earth Rising in Ghana, right? It doesn't feel so much like a co-production from Ghana. It just feels like another Hollywood film that happened to have a couple of scenes that needed to be shot in Africa, and then they decided to come shoot it in Ghana. That's what it feels like. But we are waiting for that collaboration. I think a very good collaboration of a Ghanaian production and a Ghanaian and an international collaboration. A very good example, in my opinion, would be a film like Boga, which is by a Ghanaian production company and a German production company. That feels so much like a collaboration. I'm sure there are other examples, but none really comes to my mind at the moment except Boga. And I want to see more of that. And I think that's what John is alluding to in this. And I think we need to take a cue from this as Ghanaians as well. We need to find a way to adapt, even in our storytelling, to make it as appealing as it can be for the international market as well, so that it's easier for collaborations to happen. Because if you are going to tell the stories and continue to make the stories about ourselves and not necessarily find a way to make those stories appealing to the rest of the world, these collaborations might never happen. Think about it. Well, that's my hot take on this subject. Again, shout outs to my producer, Nana Obrimpong Berima, and it will be shout outs to you for alerting me about this video. I'm sure you're gonna do some more awesome work and bring me more stuff to react or give my hot take on. So yeah, if anybody has any comments or feedback or any thoughts on this, please do well to leave them in the comment section as well. Please subscribe to this channel if you already haven't, and share this video so as many more people can get to see this content as well. Like always, my name is Tony Asankomah, and this is GH Movie Freaks Hot Take. I'm out. Peace.